Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday and today is going to be a kitchen day. The last couple of days I have done nothing but admin work. I've put videos out, I've edited videos, I've done D&D converting, I've done, you know, all that sort of stuff. Today is going to be nothing but kitchen work. Realistically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We need 6 eggs. The kids, I'm starting off, the kids have requested a one of the pancake bakes. So I'm starting there. I've got my 6 eggs. I'm going to get my Thermomix going. And we're just doing the simple pancake bake. I've showed this a few times. I'm actually going to try and make it again tomorrow and do it in vertical and see if I can make a short out of it. Shorts are something that I really need to work on. For promotional purposes and all that, and I really suck at it because I film all this stuff for YouTube, so then filming it in a different way for something else makes it difficult. But if I make this tomorrow as well, then I'm going to try. So we're just doing the normal thing that I have done before. We've got 600 grams of yogurt. I've got the store-bought stuff that I bought at Costco because I haven't made any yogurt yet because I tend to not at the beginning of the month. It's just too much going on. So 600 grams of yogurt. We've got 6 eggs. We're going to add some vanilla. And a little bit of sugar. Apollo's going to grab me the sugar jar. And you add just about sort of 3 tablespoons of sugar, which ends up being around about 50 to 60 grams, 55, 53 of sugar. And then we want the baking powder. Can you grab the baking powder as well, please?
Baking powder?
One's baking soda and one's baking powder. One has like a floury texture to it. That's baking powder, probably that one. And the other one, is the other one gritty? I need to label the jars for the kids. Feels almost like sand. Yeah, so the one that's powdery, that feels like flour, is baking powder. It's that one. And then pick a protein powder. So we just add a tablespoon of baking powder. We'll pick a protein powder. Apollo wants the chocolate hazelnut flavour today. So we do about 2 scoops of this, which is about 60 grams. And then we want about 350 grams of flour.
I bet you can make her food on
Alright.
Time to meet the most famous person in the multiverse is food. Ask more folk, right?
Now the Chobani yogurt's a lot thicker than the homemade yogurt, so this has ended up a bit thicker than the previous batches, which is fine, but it just is going to need a little bit of extra blending to get the lumps out. And we might just put pardon?
A bit of water.
Yeah, do you want to just grab me a jar with some water in it? And we might just put sort of like 30 grams of water in it just to loosen it a little bit to blend.
No blueberries?
Just,
How many?
just 30 grams, not too much.
Just 30 grams.
Yep, that was like 3 times 30 grams, but
3 times. Doubt it.
it'll be fine. It's pancake batter, basically. And pancake batter is one of those things that I barely use measurements on because I just add flour and water or milk till it gets the right consistency. So this one looks fine. So we got that. So we're going to get the chocolate chips out, but Sonnet has requested, as I said, Sonnet requested no blueberries. So I've got blueberries in a jar here that I'm going to turn into a blueberry syrup that they can put over the top of it rather than whole blueberries in it. So someone's going to grab me some chocolate chips and I'm going to grab some containers. All right, we've tried a few different size containers for this, and we tried the brownie tins last time and it was still probably a little too thick. It just puffed a little too much at the center, took a little bit too long to cook. We want these almost sort of, you know, flat-ish. So I'm going to give the cast iron baking trays a go this time, though I kind of feel like they're a little too big, but we will see how they go. They might end up a little too thin. So we've been experimenting with the different sizes. As I said, I'm probably going to make these again tomorrow. So this is an experiment in this size. And we will see. You want to turn the oven on for me? I don't think I've turned it on yet.
What temp?
180, so up at the 0.
Can I add the chocolate chips?
Yeah. So yeah, this seems too thin. So we will see how these turn out. The kids will eat it regardless. But I reckon this is
yummy.
either that or I need to bump the recipe slightly to work with 2 of these tins, because 1 tin was too thick. And then so I downsized to 2 of a smaller tin and it still wasn't great. And now we're going to give this a go. So, yep.
How much?
Just sprinkle some over the top. There we go. And I'm hoping that being this thin, we should get a cooking time of about 20-25 minutes rather than 35 to 40. That's the plan anyway, but we'll see how we go. All right, for the blueberry syrup. Now this jar is lots of liquid and not a lot of blueberries. This was one of the last jars that I did. I'm just going to add some of the liquid to some cornstarch to make a bit of a slurry and put that aside. And then I'm going to put the rest of the jar in the pot with a bit of sugar, bring it up to a simmer, and then we'll add the slurry to it. So super simple. And I'll add a bit of water if necessary, but there's a few blueberries in there, lots of syrup. Just going to add about half a cup of sugar to it. We'll start with a quarter, hey? Because that looked too much. And then I'm just going to turn this on. And we want to bring this up to a simmer, dissolve that sugar nice and hot so that when we add that cornstarch slurry in, it turns into a nice sort of a syrup. That sugar will bump the colour as well and make it a little bit more vivid. I could probably add a little bit of lime juice to it actually. Alright, so we've brought this up to a bubble, so I'm just going to mix up my slurry into it. So this was just a tablespoon of cornstarch with a bit of the juice, and all we're going to do is add that in there while it's simmering. Of course, some of my cornstarch got left behind. And bring this back up to a simmer till it thickens into a syrupy sauce. You can of course just use sugar and cook it until it turns into a syrup. It's going to take a lot longer. You can use tapioca instead of cornstarch. I could potentially use a little bit of pectin, a little bit of gelatin, any of those things, but cornstarch is the simplest and quickest method to get it to thicken up. So I ended up adding another tablespoon of cornstarch to thicken it up a bit more. Obviously the water content of this canned blueberries was too much for it, because normally you'd use whole blueberries rather than all the syrup. So I add another tablespoon of cornstarch to some of the hot liquid and then reintroduced it back, and it's definitely better than it was. So we've got more of a glossy sort of a syrup, and that should be fine for the kids to put over their bake. Alright, I'm going to grab a tea towel. Can you grab a clean tea towel, please? And I'm going to put some into a jar for the kids. The rest can go in the fridge in a different jar. And they can have a little jar of the blueberry syrup to go on their pancake bake, and then I'll put the rest in another jar and they can have that tomorrow with tomorrow's pancake bake. So that way it goes for 2 meals. Alrighty, it looks cooked. We shall see. It's nice and it actually filled up okay. Like, it doesn't look like it was not enough for the pan. And it looks like nice fluffy pancake, so it should be good. So I'm just going to cut it up, and the kids grab plates. It looks good. Nice fluffy pancake, bit of a crisp external bit. You want to try the blueberry syrup? Yeah?
Yes, of course I would like the blueberry.
Blueberry syrup.
Ma. You're the best.
Hot.
Very hot.
Blueberry syrup, you want to try it?
Yeah.
There we go. Alright, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some baguette dough, because I'm then going to put a pork roast on for in the smoker. So then we'll have the baguettes and the kids can have that with the pork roast. I am also going to mince some of the pork roast to make sausage patties, so tomorrow I might make a batch of English muffins, but for today I'm going to do just the baguette dough, and I'll do 2 batches of it. So we'll start with the first one. 600 grams of water. We need more pancakes cut up apparently, so just give me a sec. Right, so we got 600 grams of water. Now we need yeast. And we want 20 to 50 grams of yeast. We want 50 grams of sugar. 20 grams of salt. And then 100 grams of oil. I need to grab another one. 100 grams of oil. And then we're going to add our flour. Now I only have plain flour because Costco didn't have any baker's flour, so I may need to add a little bit more than normal. I normally add 1 kilo here. We might need to bump it up to maybe 1100 grams. And then I'm just gonna mix it and see what it does. And then I'll mix up a second batch and get it all in the container, and I'll bring you back then. Right, so a double batch mixed up. Now you don't have to mix this. It's a bit of a shaggy dough, and that's fine. It's fairly stiff, which you want to shape into the baguette so they hold their shape and stuff. Especially if you because if it's too high hydration, they'll spread a bit. So it's a fairly stiff, fairly shaggy dough, and we're just going to let it double before we punch it down and shape it into the baguettes, and then give it another 20 minutes on the baguette trays, and then stick it in the oven. So a super simple thing. The recipe for the baguettes is on my website. It is one of the few that I've finalised and got up there. So I'm going to put this aside to proof, and now we're going to get working on the pork. So while this proofs, I'm going to season the pork and get it in the smoker. Now we've got someone here at the moment, and the dogs just won't stop, so filming anything is going to be next to impossible. So I'm going to do a quick, we got the pork from Costco, I'm going to cut it in half, I'm going to cover it in mustard and my homemade pork seasoning to get it in the smoker. So I'll leave the camera on, but I'll probably have to put music over it or something. I think I'm going to smoke both halves today because Darryl's eating pretty much only meat at the moment, so he'll go through a lot more than, you know, we normally would. And I just don't feel like doing anything else with it at the moment. We have 2 more roasts in the fridge to do something with, but the dates on them are still a few days off, so I'm going to work through them over the next few days. But yeah, I think I'm just going to smoke both halves today, and that gives Darryl heaps of meat to pick from, and the kids can have it on their sub rolls, on their baguettes, and yeah. So I'm just tucking everything in on the ties. I'm just tying them a bit shorter because there's no rind on it now, so it a little bit less diameter, but I also want it a bit firmer because it's not going in plastic as well. It's going to sit like this. All right. So I'm going to hold everything together as much as possible, like that. All right, so now I'm just going to rinse my hands before I open up the mustard and stuff, and then we're going to coat them both in mustard. I'm going to cut up the skins and put them over potatoes as well because we've got some potatoes that need using. So for this I'm going to coat them in mustard. Now normally I'd have a kid out here helping, but they're in doing some sort of activity inside, so I'm just going to manage on my own. Just means I'll have to wash my hands a couple of times probably. So we've put mustard on each of these roasts, and I'm just going to coat the entire thing. I really like to coat my smoked meat in mustard. There's an acid content to it which helps, helps with the tenderizing of the meat, but also it creates a good crust. It helps to keep moisture in, all sorts of things. I find that coating it in mustard is a really good thing to do, a really important thing to do, but I also really like the taste of mustard. So now, normally I would, as I said, I'd have a kid helping here, so it would be a bit different, but because I don't, I'm going to give my hands another rinse before I start handling the dry rub. Now this appears to be all the dry rub I've got mixed up at the moment for some reason. Normally I would have quite a large jar of it somewhere, but obviously this is the last I'm up to, and I really just don't know if I can be bothered making more up. So my dry rub has pepper and salt and smoked paprika and a bit of brown sugar and some mustard powder and garlic and all sorts of things in it. And I just don't know if I can be bothered mixing another batch up. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to be a little more frugal with it than I normally am. And I'm going to get it all fairly well coated now because, again, I'm on my own, but this is the end of the jar. I'm going to handle this jar because it doesn't really matter. And what I'm going to try and make sure I do is get plenty of this mustard coated rub spread all over it because I don't have enough to create sort of a dry crust on it. So I'm going to create basically a wet crust. And this will be fine because there's plenty of flavour in the smoking of it as well, in the mustard and all the other parts of it. So I'll get it all coated as well as I can with what I've got. And then I'm going to put my probes in it. And we will get it in the smoker. So all that coated, and now I'll wash my hands again. All right, so the pork's in the smoker, so you'll see lots of smoke blowing by until we get the kitchen rearranged. It's in a bit of an awkward position, but that's fine. I've got 2 baking trays full of quartered potatoes here, and now I'm going to slice up the rind to go over the top of them. Anyone who's watched these videos before knows that that's something that I always do. We tend to cut the rind into strips, and those bits of fat underneath it are going to cook and render, and then it'll go through all the potatoes. Now, sometimes the pork I leave more fat on for this purpose than on the meat, depending on what I'm doing with it. Because I was roasting it today, I left a fair bit of fat on the pork because we like that that's a good thing for the roast. But when I'm canning it or mincing it or whatever, sometimes I reduce the amount of fat left behind, so it just depends on what I'm using it for. So I'm just going to cut up enough to go across both trays of the potatoes, and then we're going to cook them. Now, I do cook these in the barbecue rather than the new oven, new-ish to me oven, because I find that the crackle doesn't cook properly in the new oven. It just doesn't get hot enough for it to do what I want it to do. Whereas in the barbecue, with the hood down, I'd say the reflective heat from the gas up into the hood and then the hood back down onto the rind gets it to go really crispy in the same time that it takes to cook the potatoes without burning them. So I will cook these in the barbecue like normal, which is probably one of the things. Our pizza oven I use in the barbecue, this sort of thing I cook in the barbecue. Dutch babies I cook in the barbecue because it's much easier to pour the batter into the hot pans there than it is in the new oven. The other thing, the Dutch ovens that I use for baking sourdough, not that I've been doing sourdough very much lately, but when I do it, I do it in the barbecue, because wrangling those preheated Dutch ovens in the main oven is really challenging. It's just, I find it really difficult with my hands and my shoulders and stuff. So by doing it in the barbecue, it's up at the right height to make it really nice and easy. So I tend to use the barbecue for bread baking, for this purpose, and for things like Dutch babies. So even when we get the new kitchen organized, I still want to have a hooded barbecue. I would actually like, it's only a 4-burner, and I would actually like a 6-burner, because then I'd be able to fit 2 of the pizza cookers on it, which would make our pizza nights so much quicker. Because at the moment, cooking 6 to 8 pizzas in a row using one pizza oven is quite time consuming, and by the time I get to the end of it, I'm completely over it. So to be able to cook them 2 at a time would be really nice. And then as the kids get older, they help me top them and stuff sometimes, but I don't let them transfer it in and out of the pizza oven just yet. But as they get to a point where that's something they're more comfortable with, then we can even have a bit of a production line where they, top their own and start putting them in and spinning them and things like that. I like the idea of a wood-burning pizza oven, or like we did buy, for people who've been here a while, we did buy ourselves a wood stove a couple of years back now with the intent to get it installed, but then we didn't get the kitchen redone, and it was missing a flue piece and things like that, and we haven't been able to use it. But it would be really nice to have something that was wood rather than gas for things like that. But for the moment, we'll probably stick with a barbecue, and we might upgrade it. And we'll just see how we go. So I'm going to get these covered now. What I do, I won't show the rest of the animal. What I do is I spray them all with a bit of oil and generously with salt, just to help them get started when they're go in the hot oven, just like that. And then I'll do the same with the other, and then I'll get it in the barbecue, and then I'll show you when they're done. So the dough has well and truly doubled. So now we're going to, something has been spilt here. Right, sorry, someone knocked a jar of lard over, and it was spilling all over the bench, so I had to clean it up. So the dough has well and truly doubled. What I'm going to do is shape it out into my baguettes. Now, I am missing one of my baguette pans. It has just gone missing, I don't know where. Last time I made them, I noticed. But I actually could really do with another couple of these as well. So they're the rigid ones. I have some of the flexible ones, but they're just not as good for getting in and out of the oven. That's the other reason to have used the barbecue for the potatoes too, is that I can use the oven for the baguettes. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch out some of this dough, and we're going to weigh some of it and shape it into baguettes. I'm using semolina in the baguette pans as well as just on the scales there, just to stop it from sticking. And I like to do my baguettes about 250 to 300 grams. I'm going to go the 250 today. And all I do is get them, I'll let it sit for a minute while I weigh some more out, just let it rest after being handled. Alright, so we've got 4 lots here, And all I do, super simple. There is lots of methods for doing baguettes, and there's lots of techniques for making it really nice and everything else. I really go super simple with these. I spread it out with my hands to a nice sort of a elongated rectangle sort of a shape, and then I just bring it in, pinching and rolling, trying to keep my edges fairly square, bring it all the way in, give it a little even out if need to, pinch the seam, and that's it, just like that. Pinch the ends as well if they're overlapped a little bit. Super simple. And then I just place it in my baguette tray, just like that. Really simple. Same thing, just use my hands. This dough, because it's high in the oil content and all the rest of it, it's really easy to handle. It's a fairly low hydration, so it's not sticky so long as you let it proof. It's a very easily handleable dough. So I just go through super simple. Roll them, keep rolling and pinching as I'm rolling. Keep rolling and pinching all the way over. Curl in the ends, even out the snake a little bit if need be. Like there's a little bit of a thin point, a little bit of a thick point on this one. Obviously, because I'm only hand flattening the dough, there's just inconsistencies, and then I just pick it up and place it on the baguette pan, and that's it. So I'm just gonna go through and do them all. Alright, I forgot to show you the baguettes before they went in the oven. They're in the oven. I'll show you when they come out. But this is what the potatoes and the crackle look like. So some of the crackle cooks a little bit better than others, but if you leave it too long, the potatoes get burnt. So there's a bit of a toss-up in that. Can always stick some of the crackle back in on its own if Darryl wants a bit more of it crisped up. But this is what the potatoes look like. The kids can have some of this for lunch if they want. There's some leftover chicken. I think there's leftover risotto from dinner last night. I did them baked risotto last night, so they can have a bit of that warmed up with this, and all that. The pork is still in the smoker with my fancy probes in it, so it's still only internal temperatures of 30 at the moment. We need to get that up to 64. And yeah, the bread's in the oven. It'll be done soon, so I'll show you that when it's done. But this is the potatoes and crackling are done. And here's the bread. So all these baguettes, as I said, I don't shape them particularly neatly, so they're all going to be slightly different in shape and size, but the kids don't care, and that's it. It's a basic white bread, fairly dense. There is one that broke, so you can see the inside of it is just a fluffy, white, dense bread, and that's how the kids like it. I do like a sourdough style baguette that has lots of oven spring and things like that, but the kids like it this way, so this is what I do. So that's bread done for today, tomorrow, maybe the next day, but I am going to do some English muffins in the next couple of days as well for those sausage patties. So bread done, potatoes and stuff done, pork still in the smoker. Alright, the pork has hit internal temperature, so what we want is a minimum of 64. I let the second one get to 68 just because it's easier to pull them both out at the same time. I don't remember which number's in which. So now I'm going to pull them out and I'm going to wrap them in foil to rest, and then we will slice them up a bit later. Alright, now I do generally just double check a second spot in the pork just to double check temperature. And that's fine, that's actually gone up rather than down, so I'm happy with that. So now I'm just going to wrap this up and I'll put it in, actually I'll put it in one of the potato trays, because that way if there's any juices then they'll just go in the potato, like in the dirty tray already, and then we'll grab the second one out. My foil container has lost its end. Fairly new and already lost its end, which means that getting foil out of it's not as neat as it could be. Alright. Let's place these, get the other one out. turn the smoker off, but I need my phone and I've left it inside. So I'll turn it off remotely. So we'll just double check again the temperature, though this should be fine. But we'll just put it in a second spot just to double check. And that's still sitting at 68, so I'm comfortable with that. And so I'm just going to wrap this one up. Just a minute, mate. As well. Like that, and put that aside. Darryl has already been out here at one of the porks, and we can find the one that he's already sliced into. And we'll have a look, though his slicing leaves a little to be desired. So he's sliced into it, but sort of on an angle there. Let's have a look. Just cut it fairly thin so that the kids can use it on the fresh bread for dinner tonight. And that's what it looks like inside. Medium rare pork smoked roast that everyone really enjoys. And this is the other one. I tend to slice them all up and put them in the fridge because I'm best at slicing compared to Darryl and the kids, and it means that they can just access it to eat whenever they want. So slicing up the second one as well and putting it in a container so that everyone has this fresh smoked cold meat to access for the next few days. Saturday morning. I have no idea where this is going to fit in our scope of videos, but it's Saturday morning and I decided I was going to make some of the ham and egg cups. So Sonnet is going to help me. She wanted to show off all the different coloured eggs that we're collecting at the moment. So we are getting quite a few eggs at the moment. We're still losing a fair bit to the goanna, and we actually lost a chicken to the goanna as well the other day. So we're really working on sorting that out, but we are getting a good variety of eggs and we got some pretty colours. There's a keyed egg as well, yeah. And our dark brown ones from our MILLMERRANs, and we got blue and green and white ones as well. So we're going to make
look white through the camera.
They probably look different once when it's edited. So we're going to do our normal. We got the round ham that I got in bulk, and we're probably going to use 2 pieces per to create a bit of a, so if you use 2 pieces and sort of overlap them slightly so they both go up the sides. Yeah, like that. 2 little pieces of this round ham that we got on clearance, and create the, yeah, it's fine. The egg pockets, and then Sonnet's going to crack an egg, and we're going to crack them into bowls before we put them in there because
they're bad.
Yeah, they're home laid eggs. That's what we do. Do you want me to put the ham in? You can start on the eggs.
Yep.
And then we will bake these in the oven. Just put a bit of salt and pepper on them and bake them in the oven. Darryl and I'll have a bit of butter on top, maybe a bit of garlic butter. Eggies, yep. So you might want it in a smaller bowl to be able to easily pour it into the thing, but works. Yeah, try not to get it up the sides, but it's fine.
I'll get a smaller bowl.
Smaller bowl might make it a bit easier. And
Do you think one of these things would be good?
yeah, that might work. So I'm just going to go through, do them all, we'll cook them all off, and I'll bring you back when they're done. Going to...
You should tell them that I like to turn for them.
Yeah, did Sonnet wanted to say that she managed to get exactly 24 eggs without counting? Just happened. So it's cool. I'm going to put a little sprinkle of salt on the top of each one. You could put cheese or something if you wanted, but because we share these with the kids, we don't. You can always put cheese on it afterwards. So a little sprinkle of salt and a crack of pepper.
What about the salt?
No.
Afterwards?
You can if you want, yeah.
I'm awesome, I know. I cracked a couple eggs, but that's
It doesn't matter. There we go. Now we're just going to stick them in the oven.
why not? It's my face.
Watch out, bub.
The heat's in my face. Okay. And one side of it was enough, right?
Yep.
So one side was entirely 24.
Super simple, super tasty. I oiled the pan slightly. It's not always needed, depends on the ham that you're using. Some of this ham was quite thin, so some of the egg might have leaked out, but they are pretty much perfect, easy to scoop out little egg cake things, little egg muffins, whatever you want to call them. Like that. So perfect little brunch for Dale and I. The kids have had some other stuff as well, but they will have some of these too. And yeah, so little egg muffin things for lunch today.